My son inherited everything after my wife's death. Until the lawyer read one line that made him scream. He thought he owned the company. He didn't realize I owned his freedom. My name is Daniel Ward. I am 71 years old, a machinist by trade, a husband for 50 years, and a grandfather who packs school lunches when I am asked. I built our shop with second-hand mills and long days. We paid people on Fridays even when I did not pay myself. We told the truth. We kept promises. I still believe in that. I also believe in my son. Or I believed in the part of him that used to bring me a wrench just by the sound of the machine. He learned numbers fast and liked the front office. That was fine, but somewhere he learned to like the flash more than the work. I did not know how deep that ran until the day we put my wife in the ground. The wind pushed the tent at the cemetery. I watched the men lower my wife. The priest spoke, and my granddaughter laced her fingers in mine. Her mitten was damp from snow. Our daughters stood together, faces drawn tight. Michael stood apart, jaw set, eyes on the crowd more than the casket. I felt empty, the kind of empty that makes every small sound too loud. When the prayer ended, people moved toward us with flowers and careful words. Michael moved toward me with a flat palm. "Keys," he said. He wiggled his fingers at my coat pocket like I had dropped something that belonged to him. I looked at him and did not speak. I was thinking of her, and of the bed we had made tight that morning we signed the mortgage, and of how she always checked the back door twice before sleep. I was not thinking about a hand in my pocket at her grave. He reached in like a helper and came up with my ring. He shook it so it clattered. Heads turned. He smiled at the attention. "Dad, the company is mine now. Let us not make this hard. Office key. Gate fob. I have a 2 o'clock. "Now?" I asked. My voice surprised me. It was steady, almost soft. I kept my hand out for the ring. "Now," he said. "We need a firm hand and a clean start. This is for the best." He glanced at the banker, and the banker stepped closer and tried to look gentle. My daughters stared at the ground. My daughter-in-law touched Michael's sleeve, then pulled her hand back. The grandkids shuffled, unsure. I slid off the brass office key and the plastic fob. The brass was warm from my pocket. I placed both in Michael's palm. He closed his fist, as if he had finally won a prize after all these years. He did not look at me when he turned to shake the banker's hand. He wanted witnesses. He wanted speed. He had always wanted speed. The priest came to me then and said, "She loved you." His hand was warm on my sleeve. I nodded and thanked him. I buckled my granddaughter into the car seat and stood in the open door a moment longer than I needed to. I watched Michael talking, laughing too hard in the cold. I asked myself where I had lost him, and whether grief made him careless or just showed what was already there. At the stop sign, I looked in the mirror. Michael stood with my office key in his fist, the metal catching winter light. People were watching. He liked that. He always had. Power shifted to him in the open. I drove to the plant before dawn. Salt crusted the edges of the road. The building sat low and familiar in the gray. The main gate was shut. The keypad had a new faceplate. The sign with my name was covered with damp cardboard, taped all around as if that made it true. I stood there with my gloved hand on the fence and let the cold bite my knuckles. The bite helped me think. I walked the perimeter. The lot held 6 trucks. I counted twice. 2 flatbeds, 2 box trucks, the old Chevy for errands, the newer Ford with the dent in the rear bumper from the November snow. A corner camera blinked red at the gate. The beam reached me and then cut away. I knew every seam in that fence. I knew which slat rattled in a west wind. Now the place looked like a stranger's jacket on my own hook. The side door where I always came in had a new deadbolt scar. The fire door sticker had been peeled and stuck back on crooked. That told me the caliber of the hand. Quick, showy, the kind that thinks changing a lock is running a company. I took out my phone and made a slow video of the fence and dock. I spoke the date and time into the microphone. 7:16, Tuesday. I named the trucks in red plates. I tried my key at the side door, then held it up in the frame so the camera could see the mismatch. My breath made a white smear in the air. I felt anger move up my neck and then sit back down. Anger does not fix a lock. Hank, our foreman, pulled in. He rolled his window down halfway. "They changed it," he said. "Insurance," they said. "I am sorry, boss." "You are not the one who needs to be sorry," I said. "Go on in. Keep your head down." He swallowed. "They told me to clean out my desk by Friday." "You have had that desk 30 years, I said. "Keep your head down today." He nodded and drove through as the gate opened from inside. The red light blinked like a small heart. It used to be ours. I drove home. The living room still held boxes we had never unpacked after my wife took the bad turn. I opened the hall closet and took down the plain banker's box. It was heavier than last time. Inside were ledgers from 3 years, printouts of quarterlies, copies of vendor contracts, the payroll calendar, and a thumb drive with backups. I kept them for her when she asked me to. She liked paper. She said paper made people behave. I cleared the kitchen table. I sorted ledgers by quarter. I wrote dates. I wrote truck numbers. I wrote who signed what. My pen moved the way it always had. I called the answering service. A man had left a message last night. He wanted to buy 2 of our lathes. He had named his price. He had left his number. I sat very still and listened to the message again and again. Michael was already trying to sell the bones. I looked at my face in the dark window. It looked older than yesterday. Maybe that was light. Maybe it was truth. I put the thumb drive in my pocket. Knowledge shifted to me. Quiet inventory began. A week before she died, the nurse opened the blinds and let late sun into the room. The maple in our yard had turned red overnight. My wife asked me to turn her chair toward the window. Her hands were thin, but her eye was sharp. She touched the folder in her lap like she was checking a heartbeat. "I need you to do something for me," she said. "When I'm gone, keep the shop safe from panic and pride. Our boy is smart, but he is quick. He reaches before he looks. I will keep it safe," I said. My voice shook once. I pressed my thumb into my palm until it stopped. She nodded. "We will write it down, so no one can talk you out of it." We had seen the lawyer twice that month. He was younger than us, but careful and patient. He laid papers out the way a good mechanic lays out parts. Durable power, family trust, lifetime proxy on the voting shares. We read every line. When she was tired, we stopped and came back the next day. She did not like to guess. She liked to know. On the last day, she signed with a slow hand. He slid the pen to me, and I signed my lines. He read back a sentence she had asked for in her own words. I watched her face as he spoke. She smiled after every clause like she was counting out coins to the penny. It was her sentence. It was the shape of her will, not just the document. When we were done, the lawyer sealed a letter she had written by hand. He dated the flap. "This is for later," he said. He tapped the edge so the ink would not smear. We drove to the bank. The manager took us to the vault. We had a box there from the year we married. It held our wedding photos, the coin her father gave me when we bought the first mill, and a tiny brass whistle from my Army days. We put the sealed letter inside. The manager stamped the card and handed me the little key. She touched the key. "Keep this on you," she said. "Not in a drawer." "I will keep it with my house key," I said. "When the time comes," she said, "read the letter. Call the lawyer, and do not argue with a person who is not listening." She slept on the ride home. I watched her chest rise and fall at the lights. The maple held its leaves like it was holding still for a picture. I slid the bank key onto the chain with my tags. I did not take it off. When she died, I did what she asked. I read the letter. I called the lawyer. I said nothing about it to anyone, even when my tongue burned to say it. I wondered if keeping quiet was strength or fear. I decided it was love. Risk rose. There was a plan my son did not know existed. On Thursday, Michael called a board meeting. He chose the big conference room. He set water bottles at every seat and a glossy folder at my chair. The folder had a new logo I had not approved. Shiny. Thin. He had always liked thin. The foreman, Hank, sat 2 chairs down, hat in his hands. Our outside bookkeeper sat near the door with a notepad. 2 longtime clients were there. Michael wanted witnesses. He wanted a room full of nods. He stood at the whiteboard and wrote the word culture. He underlined it 3 times. He spoke about growth and modern systems. His voice had a rhythm to it, like he was on stage somewhere else. I watched the clients' faces. They looked polite and wary. Hank looked at the table. "Before we start," Michael said, "a few changes. Hank, we are moving you to seasonal. You can consult. We are going in a new direction." "Thank you for your service." Hank blinked hard. He looked at me, then back at his hat. His mouth worked once, then shut. I felt a heat rise in my chest. I kept my hands flat on the table. Michael turned to me. "And Dad, you can sit over there." He pointed to a chair in the corner, away from the table. "We will keep you involved as a courtesy." "But you are retired. I am handling everything." He gave me the grin he used to wear when he was a boy winning a cheap prize at the fair. He wanted applause. I stayed where I was. I opened the glossy folder. The cash flow lines drifted up without weight behind them. No line for maintenance. No reserve for slow months. No count of scrap. It read like a wish. "We are selling 2 lathes to free up capital," he said. "Old equipment is dead weight." The banker cleared his throat. "Is that wise?" he asked. "It is decisive," Michael said. He looked at me. "We need decisiveness." Not nostalgia. I thought of my wife's hand on that folder. I thought of Hank teaching me to grind a tool bit when I was 19. I thought of my grandkids sitting in church with red noses and scuffed shoes. I stood. The room went quiet. I pushed my chair in carefully. My voice did not shake. "Be careful what you take," I said. He laughed too loud. "This is not your call." "Not today," I said. He turned away, bored, already winding up another speech. He did not see the bookkeeper write lathes and circle it twice. He did not see the clients look at each other. He did not see Hank's hands clench on the hat brim. I felt shame for the room, and then the shame turned into something solid and calm. Some will call what came next revenge. Our lawyer called it justice. After my son tried to sell the lathes before the dirt settled on his mother's grave, something had to be done. I won't forgive him, and I'm going to cement my late wife's legacy. You won't expect what is going to happen soon. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I drove to the bank with the little key on my chain cold against my chest. The manager knew me. He walked me past the counters and into the vault with that quiet voice people use in churches and hospitals. The box slid forward with a metal sigh. I set it on the table and opened the lid. Inside lay the sealed letter in my wife's hand, the trust papers we had signed, a copy of the proxy, and a thumb drive in a small envelope with the lawyer's card. I sat a while and looked at her handwriting on the flap. It steadied me. I took a breath, then I went to a private room and spread the papers out flat. The trust was simple on the surface and strong under it. The company shares my wife left to Michael were not his in the way he thought. They sat inside a spendthrift trust with me as trustee until certain conditions were met. A separate page held the lifetime proxy we had signed. My right to vote those shares did not pass with her. It stayed with me until I died or chose to pass it on. I read the sentence again. It felt like a hand on my shoulder. I opened the envelope with the thumb drive and used the bank computer the manager wheeled in for me. There were 2 files, both with dates from the last hard month. I pressed play on the first. Michael's voice came through, smooth and urgent, as he told his mother that the simple version would make everything clean. He said the board needed clarity. He said there would be no drama if she signed the current draft. Her voice was weak but firm. She said she would only sign the lawyer's version. He kept pressing. He told her not to overcomplicate things. I paused the recording and sat back. My hands were flat on the table. I remembered that day. I remembered bringing her tea and seeing the anger leave her face when she saw me. I remembered Michael stepping into the hall to take a call. I had told myself he was scared. Maybe he was. But fear and greed wear the same coat when they walk fast. I called the lawyer from the bank phone. "I have the papers," I said. "I have the recordings." "Come in at 1, he said. "Bring everything." On the way out, I met the banker in the lobby. He asked after the family. I looked at him for a long second and said, "We are managing." He nodded like a man who knows the word means more than it says. Next morning, I woke early. The house was quiet. I made coffee the way my wife liked it, 2 scoops, slow pour, no rush. I set her mug on the counter without thinking and then put it back in the cupboard. The small things still tripped me. I ate toast at the counter and read the trust again before I left. Butter, salt, nothing fancy. My wife used to tease me for slicing the toast into neat squares. I did it again. Habit is a handrail. At 1 o'clock I sat across from our lawyer. His office smelled like coffee and dry paper. He checked the tabs he had made. He read each clause slow. He used the blunt end of his pen to trace the line my wife had insisted on. "Your wife was clear," he said. "Michael gets the benefit. You hold the vote for life. He cannot appoint officers or sell shares without your vote. He cannot sell core equipment without trustee approval." 2 lathes, I said. A buyer left a message. He made a note. "We will give notice." And the loan? I slid a thin folder to him. It held the assignment from the bank last fall. Michael had been short and wanted to move fast. I had bought the note to keep a hand on the wheel. The lawyer read the covenants. He tapped the page. "He pledged equipment and receivables as collateral," he said. "He promised not to sell equipment without the lender's consent. You are the lender now. If he tries to sell without your consent, you can accelerate the note." I felt both heavy and steady. This was not the way I wanted to hold my son's choices. But I could hold the shop. I could hold the men who had signed mortgages and bought braces for their kids and counted on Friday pay. The lawyer looked at me. "You once asked if paper can be kindness," he said. "Sometimes it is the only kind that holds." I thought of the kitchen light over a clean sink. I thought of my wife counting out the words in that clause like coins. I thought of the buyers who think a shop is only numbers on a page. I set the thumb drive on his desk. "There is a recording," I said. He pressed her to sign a simple version. "We will use it only if needed," he said. "First we stop the sale." I signed where he pointed. The pen felt like a tool, not a weapon. He handed me copies for my records and a clean folder that would fit in the kitchen drawer where we used to keep takeout menus. The sun fell between the blinds and even lines across the desk. My phone buzzed, then stilled. The day seemed to tighten like a knot pulled true. Stakes leaped. I went home. I turned on the kettle and wiped the counter while it heated. The window over the sink looked onto the maple. The branches were bare now. I remembered my wife laughing when wind made the sheets snap like sails. I poured a mug of tea and sat at the kitchen table with the ledgers. Old wood. A ring where someone once forgot a coaster. Our life, in simple marks. The phone rang. A number I did not know. "This is Paul," the buyer said. "I got a lawyer's email. It says there is a lien. Your son told me the machines were free and clear. I do not buy trouble." "They are not free and clear," I said. "Do not send a truck." "Understood," he said. I am out. I thanked him, hung up, and the phone rang again. Michael. What did you do? He said. No hello. Heat all the way through. You are not the bank. I am the bank, I said. Since October. Silence. Then the voice came harder. You cannot hold me hostage. I am trying to modernize a dinosaur. We need cash. You are trying to sell the tools that feed 10 families, I said, without consent. That is not modern. That is careless. Rules, 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 he said. You think paper beats blood? I think paper keeps promises, I said. Your mother asked me to keep the shop safe. He swore. I am calling the buyer back. I am moving the lathes Friday. You will not stop me. You already stopped yourself, I said. He backed out. He does not buy trouble. You set me up, he said. You want me to fail? No, I said. I want the shop to live. He hung up. I stared at the kettle's empty light. I rinsed my mug and set it in the rack. I set my keys in the dish by the microwave, where hers used to sit. The kitchen felt steady. My phone buzzed with a note from the lawyer. The buyer had canceled in writing. I touched the edge of the paper until the breath came easy. I reversed my worst risk, or so I thought. The next morning, the lawyer's conference room felt like a schoolroom. My daughters sat near me. They held their cups in both hands. Hank waited in the hall in case we needed him later. Michael came in late. His coat was open. His face was set for a win. The lawyer read the will slow. Gifts for the grandkids. A small gift to the church she loved. A note for the apprenticeship fund at the shop. My daughters nodded at that. They knew her heart. Then the lawyer turned to the clause about the company. He read it clean. All gifts to Michael are held in trust, subject to a lifetime voting proxy held by his father, he said. The trustee may distribute income for health, education, maintenance, and support. Principal remains protected until conditions are met. Michael's chair scraped. No, he said. His voice climbed. That is not what she wanted. She told me. She said I would run it. She said it was time. The lawyer slid a photocopy across the table, my wife's cursive clear as ever. She wrote this language, he said. Then he set the small speaker down and pressed play. Michael's voice came out smooth and hard. He told his mother a simple version would make things clean. He said there would be no drama if they skipped the proxy. He said she should not overcomplicate it. My daughters stared at their cups. One wiped a tear. I watched my son's face lose color, then flush. He stood, then sat, then gripped the table like it might push back. The lawyer paused the file. We will be precise, he said. The trust stands. The proxy stands. Notices have been filed. Any sale of core equipment without consent will be a breach. Michael turned to me. You did this, he said. You turned her against me. I followed her words, I said. That is all. He hit the table once with his fist. The sound was small. The plant in the corner shook a leaf. He looked at his wife. She looked at the door. He looked back at me. There was no place left to look. I will fix this, he whispered, but his hands were empty. Michael signed the receipt. His hand shook. The pen left a groove. He stared at the door as if wanting could open it. It did not. In that quiet, the shape of the room changed for good. The house was quiet. I was paying the heating bill online when Michael called. His name filled the screen like a warning label. I answered. Undo it, he said. No hello, no breath. Undo everything. Sign the company back to me. I will not, I said. We are done selling tools for cash. You think you can fence me out? His voice shook with speed. I will go around you. I will go through you. I will file for guardianship. You hear me? You are old. You are grieving. You are not fit. A judge will see that he let the words hang there, heavy and dirty. For a second I tasted metal. I set my hand on the counter to steady it. "You will tell a court I cannot manage my own life," I said, "to get at the shop." "To save it," he snapped. "From you. You think throwing around paper makes you a king? You are not. You are my son," I said. "You are not my boss." He laughed once, sharp. "We will see what a judge says." He hung up. The room stayed quiet and still. I could hear the refrigerator hum. I could hear the neighborhood dog bark down the block. Anger came and tried to lift my hand. I let it pass. I called the lawyer. I told him what Michael had said. "He will try," the lawyer said. "He will need a doctor to say you cannot manage. He will need stories. He will need to move fast and loud." "He is good at fast and loud," I said, giving myself a reminder. After lunch, a woman from Adult Protective Services rang my bell. Thin coat, clipboard, careful eyes. I invited her in. I made tea the way my wife used to make it for visitors, strong and with a plate of crackers. She asked me who paid my bills. I opened the laptop and showed her. She asked me to sort coins by date. I did. She smiled. She asked me the day. I told her. She looked at the photo on the shelf of my wife and me holding our first invoice. I told her the date on that too, and the price of the job. "Your son says you are confused," she said, soft. "I am grieving," I said, "but I am steady." She walked through the kitchen. She touched the calendar on the wall. She watched me check the back door lock twice. "That looks like a careful man," she said. "I will write my report." When she left, a process server came with a packet. Emergency petition for guardianship. Michael had written that I was easily manipulated, that I had made rash moves, that I was hostile. I called the lawyer again. He told me to come the next morning. The bank's small conference room looked like a waiting room that forgot its purpose. Beige walls, a sweating pitcher, a clock that ticked too loud. I sat with my lawyer to my left and 20 years of habit in my bones. Michael came in fast, new tie, jaw like a blade. His wife stayed a step behind, eyes on the carpet. The banker set his hands flat and asked for clarity on signers. No speeches. He looked tired of being in other people's families. My lawyer slid a thin stack across the table. The proxy, the trust page, the assignment of note. Tabs marked the lines that mattered. The banker read in silence, lips moving once on a date. He nodded to himself and lined the pages in a neat square. The room felt like a shop on a Monday, quiet, all the work ahead. Michael started talking before the banker looked up. The words were quick and heavy, as if speed could pin them to truth. He said I was unwell. He said I had made rash moves. He said the company needed him now. It was a flood with no riverbanks. The banker waited it out like a man watching rain from under a roof. "Valid," the banker said at last, tapping the stack. That one word changed the air. I heard my heartbeat in my ears, steady as a metronome. My lawyer said there was one more item. He placed the thumb drive on the table like a small tool. He asked if the banker wanted counsel present. The banker shook his head. We listened. The second recording was tight and ugly. Michael promised a vendor a side payment to move inventory quietly before year end. Numbers and dates as clean as a receipt. His wife's breath caught where she sat. The banker's pen stopped its slow roll. I watched my son's face go bright, then pale, then stubborn. He reached for a story about marketing incentives. It landed like a dull tool on hard metal. The banker's voice was soft and final. "No, that is fraud." Michael's chair bumped the wall. He was all sharp edges and no grip. He looked for outrage and found only eyes that had seen too much. He said, "You set me up," with the energy of a man who needs the ground to agree. I kept my hands in my lap. The banker froze transfers. He suspended access. He named a review committee like a man reading weather. My lawyer gathered the stack, tapped it flush, and slid a payroll form to me. My signature looked plain and living on the line. Across from me, the son I raised looked like a stranger pressed flat against glass, trying to push through with heat alone. We left the room with copies in a simple folder. I tucked it under my arm the way I used to carry schematics. Careful, not precious. By noon, the town had the story wrong. Someone had sent a photo of me asleep in a chair with a crossword on my chest. Someone had circled pill bottles on my counter like evidence of sin. Michael had told clients to expect turbulence. The word spread like oil. It slicked every conversation and made good men slip. It was the last piece of my sanity. I called the plant manager. Meet me at the lawyer's. We signed the resolution in the late light. The proxy had weight because her sentence did. I used it. I removed Michael as acting CEO. 90 days for the plant manager to steady the wheel. Clear authority for routine work. No loud surprises. If Michael wanted a path back, it was there, painted bright. If he wanted to sprint past it, that would be his choice. It felt both hard and kind. We posted the notice by the time clock. We brought donuts the next morning because habits hold a place even when names change. I told the men what mattered. Orders stand. No machines move without my say. Friday stays Friday. Heads nodded. Hands stayed busy. In the afternoon, the deputy served Michael at his house. He came to my porch instead. He pounded until the neighbor's curtain moved. I opened the door and stood in the frame. No shouting, no back and forth. He looked like a man on a sinking raft, trying to bargain with the ocean. He threw words like tools, cruel, revenge, thief. They clattered on the step between us. I told him one line and let it stand. I am doing this for your mother. He hated the sentence because it did not bend. He promised to buy lawyers like candy. He promised to take everything with your name on it. The deputy's car turned the corner, slow as Sunday. Michael backed off, then threw his shoulders forward again, then backed off for real. I swept the porch out of habit, a strip of dust the only proof he had been there. I protected the family and the work. This was not payback. It was housekeeping with a backbone. But it wasn't the end of the story. He came in hot. His truck slid crooked into the lot. He didn't park. He abandoned it. He pushed through the lobby door so hard it hit the stopper and bounced. 2 big guys followed him. The shop went quiet in a way that is not quiet at all. You can hear fear in a room like that. He saw me by the office window and went straight at me. "Old man," he said, loud enough for the floor. "Get out of my way." The plant manager stepped up between us. "Michael, stop." "Not your name to say," he snapped, and then he pointed at the manager's chest. "You're fired. Get off my floor." "No," the manager said. "Nothing fancy. Just that." Michael gave a short, hard laugh. He turned to the men on the machines. "Everyone hear me?" "He's done. You work for me now. I'm in charge." No one moved. You could see hands hover over stop switches and then stay. Hank stood by the tool crib, jaw set. A kid on the saw looked sick. Michael faced me again. His eyes were bright with a kind of heat that makes bad choices. He stepped in close. I could smell coffee and something sour. "You pathetic relic," he said. "You're not a hero. You're a scared little man hiding behind paper. You ruined my mother's last year with your rules, and now you're going to ruin mine." My mouth went dry. I kept my hands down. "You think anybody respects you?" He gestured at the room. "They pity you. You walk around like a museum piece. I carry this place. Me. Not your old plays, not your old friends. Me." He leaned in until his forehead almost touched mine. "You don't deserve her ring," he said, eyes flicking to my hand. "You don't deserve this shop. You don't even deserve us. You kept me small my whole life so you could feel big. You hear me? I hate you for it." Someone breathed in hard behind him. The kid at the saw swore under his breath. Hank took one step forward, slow, like a man remembering he still had legs. I held my ground. I could feel my age in my knees, but not in my voice. "You are my son," I said. "I will not move." He shoved me in the shoulder. Not a slap. A shove meant to test the room. One of his guys grinned. The manager took a half step to catch me if I slipped, but I did not. I stared at Michael's face and saw the boy who used to cry when a drill bit snapped. I saw the man who would sell a lathe for a line on a chart. Those two did not meet in the middle. "Put your hands on me again," I said, "and every man in this room will remember who you are, not who you pretend to be." He looked around, hunting for applause and finding none. Faces were steady. No one moved toward him. No one moved toward me. Most looked at the floor. One looked at the clock. The room had chosen the work over the fight. He slammed the crumpled petition on the nearest desk. "This means I can fire you," he shouted, though his voice cracked on the last word. "All of you." The paper slid off the edge and drifted to the floor. No one bent to pick it up. The deputy walked in from the hall then, same man as before, hat in hand, voice calm. "Michael," he said, "outside. Now, no long explanation, no list of charges, just a line." Michael stared at me. His mouth worked. "You'll die alone," he said, low and ugly, "and I won't be there." I felt it land. I did not show it. "Leave," I said. "Come back when you can talk like a man." He stood there, shaking, then turned and shouldered the door so hard it rattled. The two men followed him out, slower now. The deputy waited until the glass settled, then nodded once and left. The machines started up again one by one. The room filled back in. That night, the house felt smaller. I could still hear Michael's words from the floor. "Old man, relic. I hate you. You will die alone." Words like those do not wash off. They stick. I let them sit there one by one until I could name what they were. A son trying to hurt because he could not control. I pulled a chair out and sat at the kitchen table where my wife and I had paid bills for 40 years. The ledgers sat in a neat stack at the edge. The glossy folder with Michael's new logo lay on top like a joke that had gone flat. I took the folder away and put our payroll calendar on top. Friday was still circled. I pressed my thumb on that circle to make sure it did not move. I thought through every step from the graveside to the shop floor. The keys at the cemetery, the locks, the message about the lathes, the call where he threatened guardianship, the bank room, the shove at the shop, the last line at the door. "You will die alone." I had tried to slow him down. I had given him a stipend and a path. I had set rules that were clear and firm. I had put men with calm voices in the doorway. None of it slowed him for long. He ran red lights and called it courage. Maybe there is no possible future with my son. The thought came in quiet and sat down across from me. It did not shout. It did not try to argue. It was the kind of thought that shows up after you have swept a floor and finally see what is under the table. I did not like it. I did not push it away. I remembered my wife's voice in that small room at the bank. Read the letter. Call the lawyer. Do not argue with a person who is not listening. I had done those things. She had not told me what to do when a son shoved his father in front of men who needed their hands steady. She had trusted me to know. I went to the porch and sat on the top step. The boards were cool under my palms. The porch light hummed. Across the street, a kitchen light came on and went off again. This town was not built for drama. It was built for clocks and coffee, and men who show up on time. If Michael was going to try to break that, I could not keep treating it like a family argument. I had to call it what it was. I locked the front door. I took the envelope from the hall closet. I laid out the papers I would need and a yellow pad for notes. I wrote down names: the deputy, Hank, the plant manager, the receptionist. I wrote down dates and times. I put the pen on top of the pad and left it there. I did not sleep much. When the first low light came through the curtains, I put on a clean shirt. I drank my coffee at the counter. I washed the cup. I set it on the rack. I picked up the envelope and my keys and stood in the entry and looked at the room one more time. I had done all the soft things. Now I would do the hard thing. Only I had to put an end to it. A month later, We sat in a courtroom. The benches were hard. People cleared their throats the same way in every row. The judge came in and took the seat like a person climbing into a machine that moves slow and does not care for noise. Michael sat at the other table with his lawyer. He had a new suit and the same jaw. He did not look at me. His wife kept her eyes on her lap. My daughter sat behind me. One had a tissue in her hand she did not use. The plant manager sat 2 rows back. Hank was by the aisle. The deputy sat near the front, hat in his lap, like a man at church. I did not want this. I wanted a Sunday dinner with everyone talking over each other and nothing at stake but whether the pie would set. But that life was not in the room. This one was. The prosecutor spoke in a steady voice that did not reach for drama. He said the word assault once, then again. He called the deputy, who said what he saw at the shop. The shove, the raised voice, the threat. He called the plant manager, who kept his hands folded and told the truth in 10 clean sentences. He called Hank, who kept it shorter. Mr. Ward stood still. Michael pushed him. We were afraid no one tried to decorate anything. It all came the way it had happened, plain and hard. My lawyer asked me one question. "Why are you here?" "Because I tried to fix it at home," I said, "and home was not enough." Michael's lawyer stood and said things about grief and stress and misunderstanding. He tried to make the room soft. He tried to make the word shove sound like pat. He did his job. Michael kept his eyes on the table. He looked like a man trying to breathe through a tight shirt. The judge asked a few short questions. He did not say much more than he had to. He did not smile. He did not frown. He looked at the paper, then at us, then at the paper again. He made notes with a pencil. I watched the pencil move and thought about line work and careful hands. When it was done, the judge spoke in the same even tone he had used to ask the time at the start. He found the facts met. He found the shove clear. He called it assault. He said the term of custody out loud. 1 year. He set conditions for later that were simple. Counseling, no contact that was not arranged, no shop, no vendors, no keys. Michael looked up then. His mouth opened like he wanted to make a speech, but there was nowhere for it to go. The deputy stood and took a step toward him. My son looked back once, at no one, then put his hands behind him without being told. The cuffs clicked. He walked out with the deputy. His lawyer stacked papers and did not look at me. My daughters held still. The room emptied. I stayed where I was until it was only me and the sound of someone vacuuming down the hall. The judge's words had not felt like victory. They had felt like weight sliding from a bad shelf onto the floor. It was loud, and then it was done. I walked outside and stood in the cold air. My breath showed in front of me, and then looked like nothing. The town felt the same. Success sat there, quiet and real. The next problem was not mine to hold for a while. The machine had moved. It did not care for noise. It had done its work. The week after the hearing, Friday felt like Friday again. The shop hummed. Men took pay envelopes in hands that did not shake. The plant manager signed invoices with a neat name that had been waiting years for a clean line. Hank taught a new kid how to check a gauge and told a joke that made the kid smile with his eyes. The new Ford still had the dent. No machines moved except for work. I walked the floor slow. I touched the corner of a bench where my wife had set coffee for me 100 times. I stood by the dock and watched the truck back in with a soft beep, beep, beep that sounded like breathing. I breathed with it and let my shoulders drop for the first time in months. We set up the apprenticeship fund in her name the way she wanted. The bookkeeper printed the first notice and pinned it by the time clock. A few men stopped and read it. One touched the paper and nodded to himself. I went back to the office. The wall where the cardboard had covered my name was still blank. I left it that way. At home, I cooked eggs and remembered the way she liked the edges to crisp. I poured coffee and drank it hot for once. I cleaned the counter like we used to after a long day. I called my grandkids and asked about school. I told them the shop was fine. I told them their mother had their tuition covered from the trust. I said nothing sharp about their father. They did not need my anger in their house. I went to the cemetery with tulips from the grocery store because hers would not come up for another month. I brushed old leaves from the stone. I told her what had happened. I did not dress it up. I said, "He is in for a year." I said, "The men are steady." I said, "Your sentence held." The family had cracked. That was the true thing. The shop had not. The men had not. The promise to my wife had not. Those truths sat on one side of a scale, and on the other sat the ache in my chest that had my son's name on it. The scale did not balance. It held. That was enough for now. Paper kept the promise she wrote, and the shop kept its Friday. How many chances do you give a man you love before you protect the people who depend on you? Have I done the right thing? Please tell me in the comment section.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.